We are in Book 7, the Book of Yoga, and we've come to Canto 4, the triple soul forces. Over the past couple of weeks, we have seen Savitri meeting the Madonna of suffering. There are 3 soul forces, and we see that each of them addresses Savitri, saying, "O Savitri, I am thy secret soul." But in fact, none of them is actually her secret soul. These are emanations or projections of the soul whom she encounters in inner mind. Aurobindo mentions that here on this first page, that that's where she sits. And she represents divine pity and compassion. It's an aspect of our soul, this aspect of universal sympathy. But we see that she is helpless. She can sympathize. She can give some soothing comfort through that power of sympathy. But she says, God gave me love. He gave me not his force. But she says, I don't complain. I continue to hope. I know that one day he shall come at last. God will call. There's a pattern to this canto. Each of these 3 soul forces introduces herself. And then we hear the echo, the perverted echo of that same force from the human depths. So we are in the middle now of the speech, the passage, where the man of sorrows expresses himself, the beast that crouching growls within man's depths. And we see that he's full of self-pity, egoistic self-pity. It's just the opposite of the divine compassion, which is a natural projection of the soul. So we came to the middle of page 506. I will read on from there to the end of the section at the top of page 508. And then we'll go back and look at each sentence in detail. I have loved, but none has loved me since my birth. My fruit of works is given to other hands. All that is left me is my evil thoughts, my sordid quarrel against God and man, envy of the riches that I cannot share, hate of a happiness that is not mine. I know my fate will ever be the same. It is my nature's work that cannot change. I have loved for mine, not for the beloved's sake. I have lived for myself and not for others' lives. Each in himself is soul, by nature's law. So God has made his harsh and dreadful world. So has he built the petty heart of man. Only by force and ruse can man survive. For pity is a weakness in his breast. His goodness is a laxity in the nerves. His kindness an investment for return. His altruism is ego's other face. He serves the world, that him the world may serve. If once the Titan's strength could wake in me, if Enceladus from Etna could arise, I then would reign the master of the world, and like a god enjoy man's bliss and pain. But God has taken from me the ancient force. There is a dull consent in my sluggish heart, a fierce satisfaction with my special pangs, as if they made me taller than my kind. Only by suffering can I excel. I am the victim of titanic ills. I am the doer of demoniac deeds. I was made for evil. Evil is my lot. Evil I must be, and by evil live. Naught other can I do but be myself. What nature made me, that I must remain. I suffer and toil and weep. I moan and hate. And Savitri heard the voice, the echo heard, and turning to her being of pity, spoke. Madonna of suffering, Mother of grief divine, thou art a portion of my soul put forth to bear the unbearable sorrow of the world. Because thou art, men yield not to their doom, but ask for happiness and strive with fate. Because thou art, the wretched still can hope, but thine is the power to solace, not to save. One day I will return, a bringer of strength, and make thee drink from the Eternal's cup. His streams of force shall triumph in thy limbs, and wisdom's calm control thy passionate heart. Thy love shall be the bond of humankind, compassion the bright key of nature's acts. Misery shall pass, abolished from the earth. The world shall be freed from the anger of the beast, from the cruelty of the Titan and his pain. There shall be peace and joy forevermore. Who will start, Rosa? This side, Dhanalakshmi.
I have loved, but none has loved me since my birth. My fruit of works is given to other hands. All that is left to me is my evil thoughts, my sordid quarrel against God and man, envy of the riches that I cannot share, hate of a happiness that is not mine.
Thank you. So the characteristics of this part of our humanity, this man of sorrows, is lurking there somewhere in all of us. He is angry. He's angry because he doesn't have what he thinks he should have. But he is also helpless. So this first line, it's the pure expression of self-pity. That I have loved, but no one has loved me since I was born. And he complains. He says, I make efforts, I work hard, but the fruit of my works is given to other people. They enjoy it. So all that's left to me are these terrible, tormenting, evil thoughts. This feeling that I have of quarrel against God and man. And he says sordid quarrel. Sordid, it's just the opposite of high and noble. It's low and selfish and mean and petty. He experiences envy of all the riches that I cannot share. Envy is when you think, he is enjoying all that. Why shouldn't it come to me? I should have it. And even hatred of a happiness that is not mine. There's such a feeling of resentment and jealousy, and that intensifies into hatred of that happiness that other people enjoy, not me. And then again this self-pity, he says, I know it will always be like this. It can't change. I know my fate will ever be the same. That's in the next sentence, isn't it? All right, Suresh, please.
I know my fate will ever be the same. It's my nature's work that cannot change. I have a cloud for mine, not for the beloved's sake. I have lived for myself and not for others' lives.
So he says, I know my fate will always, here ever means always, it will always be the same. It's not going to change. This is my nature, and my nature cannot change. This is when people feel like this, that, oh, this is how I am and I can't change. This is a sure sign of being stuck in the mud. But he's quite frank about it. He knows, he admits, or he expresses clearly that I have loved for my own sake, not for the sake of the beloved. This is our normal, egoistic kind of human love. It's very, very natural for us that we love because it makes us feel good or bad or whatever. But true love, love that's really for the sake of the other, that belongs to a much higher part of our nature. It's something divine that comes into us. And in the same way, we live egoistically for our own sake, not for the sake of other people. And then he justifies that. Luz, would you read? Yeah.
Each in himself is soul by nature's law. So God has made his harsh and dreadful world, so has he built the petty heart of man.
Thank you. So each human being is all alone. There's an English poet who has written, "No man is an island." But in fact, when we, in our ego being, feels very much alone, separated, that he has to stand for himself, no? That he says that's the law of nature, that each of us has to look after number one, because nobody else is going to look after you. You have to do it yourself. And then he says that's the way God has made this world, this harsh and dreadful world, a world that's cruel, full of cruelty and suffering. And this is the way he has made our human hearts. Who is responsible for making us like this, with our petty, limited, selfish hearts? It's all God's fault. Bhavan.
Only by force and greed can man survive. For pity is a weakness in his breast. His goodness is a laxity in the nerves. His kindness an investment for returns. His altruism is ego's other face. He serves the world that him the world may serve.
Only by force, strength, and ruse, trickery, being clever, that's the only way that man can survive in this harsh and dreadful world. Pity is a weakness. It makes you weak. Being good, virtue, he says, is a laxity in the nerves. It's a weakness. You're not strong enough to stand up for what you really want, and so you have to be good and smile and serve other people. If he's kind, it's an investment. He does it and he expects that there will be a return. People will be kind and generous in return to him. His altruism. Altruism, in our normal speech, it's a kind of positive thing. We think of people being unselfish, doing things for the good of humanity, for the good of other people. But very, very often behind our altruism, behind our sense of service, of wanting to serve the whole or other people, it's just the other face of ego. What you're doing is that you're serving the world in order that you may be served by the world. People are not conscious of this. They do it with every good intention, very often, but that may be how it is. They are good because it makes them feel good and valued and appreciated. Arti.
If once the Titan strength could wake in me, if Enceladus from Etna could arise, then would reign the master of the world, and like a god enjoys man's bliss and pain.
Yeah, so he feels weak and helpless. But if he had strength, then he would be like a titan. The titans are these superhuman beings, the old gods before the Olympian gods in ancient Greece arose. Superhuman, outsize, powerful beings. One of those titans in Greek mythology is Enceladus. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten the story of Enceladus. I should look it up, or somebody else can look it up in the Greek mythology here. But when the Titans got suppressed by the Olympian gods, Enceladus is imprisoned under the volcano of Etna in Sicily, in this island off the southern tip of Italy. So when the volcano bubbles and begins to erupt, that is Enceladus moving around. So if Enceladus could manage to throw off the mountain, then I would be like that. I'd be one of those big titans, and I would reign. I would be the master of the world, and I would enjoy all the happiness and the unhappiness of human beings like a god. Would you like to read, sir? No? Joel?
But God has taken from me the ancient force. There is a dull consent in my sluggish heart, a fierce satisfaction with my special pangs, as if they made me taller than my kind. Only by suffering can I excel.
So he's expressing this feeling of weakness. No? He may have the feelings of a titan, but he doesn't have the strength of a titan in order to implement them. God has taken from me that ancient force. And even in my heart is sluggish, it's lazy. There's some inertia there. No? And because it doesn't have the strength, it accepts. Consent is when you say, yes, I agree. There's a dull consent in my sluggish heart. And then there's even a kind of delight, a fierce satisfaction, some kind of self-satisfaction with my special pains, the pangs, the suffering that I am suffering. I'm suffering more than anybody else. It's as if this suffering makes me more important, taller, outstanding among my kind, among others of my kind. And it's only by my suffering that I can excel. To excel means to be better than others, more outstanding than others. Aliena?
I am the victim of titanic
Ills.
I am the door of demonic ills. I was made for evil. Evil is my Lord. Evil I must be, and by a will
Live.
No other can I do but be myself. What nature made me that I must remain? I suffer and toil and weep. I mourn and hate.
Yes. So this is his self-pity. He feels that he's a victim of titanic ills. Terrible things have been done to me. My suffering is on a superhuman scale. And because of that, I do all these bad things. I hate, and if I could hurt people, I would. I've been made like that. That's my lot. Your lot is your fate, what you have to accept. I have to be evil. I have to live by evil. I can't do anything else. That's what I am. That's how I am. What nature has made me like this, and I can't change it. So here I am. I suffer. I toil. I have to work hard. I weep and complain. I moan. It's also complaining, groaning, and I hate. Sergei.
And Savitri her was the ego her, and turning to her being of Peter's name. Madonna of suffering, not of being divine. Her art, a portion, also forth to the unbearable sorrow of the world.
So this is who this Madonna of suffering is. She's a portion of the divine soul. She's emanated to bear all this unbearable sorrow that is in the world. Because you exist, this is this second person singular that we come across in poetry. But you are, that in ordinary speech, that's what we'd say. Because you exist, men don't just accept misfortune. They don't yield. They don't give up and surrender to the bad things that happen to them. They ask for happiness, and they struggle. They make efforts against fate, bad fate. It's because you are there that they do that. Because you exist, the wretched, the people who are really living in very, very miserable conditions, they can still hope. There's something, you give them at least hope.
So I lost at the moment. Before it was man of sorrow, but here Savitri tells Madonna.
Suffering, grief divine.
Divine.
Yes. So these things are very close, no? The mother of sorrows. Now she calls her the mother of suffering. She was suffering these 7 stabs in her heart, you remember? And she's the mother of divine grief, this pity and compassion which is there at all the unbearable sorrow of the world. So this is who she is. And Savitri says, you are a portion, you're a part of my soul, one of these 3 aspects. When we get to the end of the canto, we'll discuss what are these 3 aspects and what do they mean. But I think we won't do it at this point. Let us see them all clearly the way they are imaged first. But we can see that the Madonna, she was also, she said, helpless wrath, this helpless anger. I see all the terrible things that are happening, and my soul is torn with helpless wrath. That is one of the characteristics of both these beings. One is the divine expression of pity, compassion, grief divine, and the other is an echo of it from the lower depths, in the nature consciousness, the egoistic counterpart, we can say, perverted counterpart. And we can maybe observe these 2 aspects in ourselves also.
But thine is the power to so raise, not to say, one day I will return, a bringer of strength, and make thee drink from the eternal cups. His streams of force shall triumph in thy limbs, and wisdom's calm control thy passionate heart.
Yes. You have the power to solace, to give comfort, but you can't actually save people. No? The Madonna herself had said that. God gave me love, but not force. So then Savitri gives her promise. She says, now I'm going on. I have to go on my journey, but one day I will return. And when I come back, I'm going to bring you that strength which you are missing now. I'll make you drink from the Eternal's cup. I would think that the Eternal's cup gives bliss to cure the sorrow, but here it seems to give strength. His streams of force shall triumph in thy limbs. You will be filled with the supreme strength, no? And at the same time, your passionate heart, which is capable of such intense feeling, will be controlled by wisdom, knowing how to help.
So that is the solution. Wisdom is the solution.
Well, we don't get the solution until right at the end, but this particular aspect can be completed by strength and by wisdom. And when that happens, it's your turn. Would you read?
Yeah. Thee love,
Thy love.
thy love shall be the bond of humankind. Compassion, the bright key of nature's acts. Misery shall pass abolished from the earth. The world shall be freed from the anger of the beast, from the cruelty of the Titan and his pain. There shall be peace and joy forevermore.
Yes. So when this transformation comes about, when Savitri is able to return with the full soul strength, no? She says that love of yours, that universal sympathy and compassion, that will become the connecting link between all human beings. And compassion will be the key to natural behavior, spontaneous behavior. It will be based on compassion. Of course, this word key, it has different suggestions. We think of a key that will unlock in the door, but we can also think of a key in music. When a composer is writing music, he will choose a particular key that has a special atmosphere to communicate. So it would be that the whole tone of the action of nature, it'll be based on compassion.
Key also means answer, no?
If you have the key, then you can find the answer. Yes. Misery. So there's physical misery. Some people who live in slums, they are in such dreadful conditions. This is physical misery. But there's also a tremendous amount of psychological misery in human beings. But that misery perhaps is based on this kind of egoistic self-pity, that psychological misery. No? She says, misery shall pass, it'll be finished, it'll be abolished. There won't be any more misery on the earth, because the world will be set free from the anger of that man of sorrows with all his resentments and hatred. And the world will be freed from the cruelty of this Titan and his pain. The Titan hates and is horrible and violent and mean and cruel because he is suffering. So this will pass away. Then there shall be peace and joy forevermore. This is the promise that Savitri makes. So we see there's a kind of structure to this first section. No? First the Madonna presents herself, then we hear the echo, the warped echo from the lower levels of nature, and then there's Savitri's promise. And that structure happens with each of the three powers. So we can just make a start on the next section. Martin.
You start?
We'll start on the, yes.
On passed she in her spirit's upward roof, an ardent grandeur blind with pearls and drops. The quiet wind flattened the heart to warm. The finer perfume breathed from slender trees. All beautiful grew, subtle and high and strange.
So we can compare this description here with the one that was the setting in which she saw the Madonna of Sorrows. If we go back to the beginning of the canto, that was on a low and prone and listless ground. Something that's listless, it has no energy. There, the Madonna sat on the ground, on the rugged, ragged soil, and with a sharp stone beneath her feet. And she's wearing a pale, lustrous robe, a moon-bright face in a somber cloud of hair. Now we're moving up a level. Savitri's passing on in her spirit's upward route. And it's like beginning to go up the mountain. There's an ardent grandeur. The rocks are climbing up, strong, something grand and noble, amid ferns, rocks. And there's a very nice wind, a quiet wind, flattered the heart to warmth. Sometimes as we start to go up the mountain, the air begins to smell and taste really delicious, no? A finer perfume breathed from slender trees. There's beautiful, slender means thin. We like girls to be slender, when they are young. So there's a different atmosphere. Everything grows beautiful, subtle and high and strange. What was that?
Here on boulder carved like a huge throne, a woman sat in gold and purple sheen, armed with a trident and a thunderbolt. Her feet upon a couchant lion's back.
Yes. So for most Indians, this is an instantly recognizable picture, no? As the boulder is carved, the stone is carved like a huge throne, and there is the goddess in gold and purple sheen. It's like what we call shot silk with two colors woven in different directions, purple and gold, and it's sheen, it's shining, reflecting the light. And she's holding a trident and a vajra, thunderbolt. She has great power, and she's so powerful that she can subdue the lion who is her vehicle, is lying couchant, lying down, and she has her feet on his back. This is Durga. Yes. A formidable smile curved round her lips. Heaven fire laughed in the corners of her eyes. Her body a mass of courage and heavenly strength, she menaced the triumph of the nether gods. She's smiling, but even her smile is expressing power. Formidable smile, curving here. And the corners of her eyes, heaven fire laughed in the corners of her eyes. Sometimes she's shown with red eyes. And her body is strong, a mass of strength and courage. And she is powerful, she's threatening against the triumph of the nether gods, the gods who look after the lower levels of nature. To menace means to threaten. That's how she uses her power to destroy the asuras and the rakshasas. We've got quite a long sentence. You want to try it, Dhanalakshmi?
A halo of lightnings flamed around her head, and sovereignty, a great cestus, zoomed her robe, and majesty and victory sat with her, guarding in the void cosmic battlefield, against in the flat equality of death, and the all-leveling insurgent night, the hierarchy of the ordered powers, the high changeless values, the peaked eminences, the privileged aristocracy of truth, and in the governing ideal's sun, the triumvirate of wisdom, love, and bliss, and the sole autocracy of the absolute light.
Yes. So let's look at this picture. We know a halo from sacred paintings, the kind of aura holy beings have, but this is very dynamic. Lightnings. This is a halo of lightnings. They're flashing. And she's wearing a kind of belt, a cestus, which expresses sovereignty. She's a ruler. And with her, I don't know whether there are symbolic figures, but she's expressing majesty, royal power, victory. She has these qualities with her. And what she's doing is, in the wide cosmic battlefield, in this universe, which is a field of battle between many, many different powers, she is protecting, guarding. She's guarding a whole list of things. She's guarding the hierarchy of the ordered powers. There are powers that have been arranged in a kind of order in the divine dispensation. She's protecting that order. She's protecting the high, changeless values. The peaked eminences. Peaks are the tops of mountain. The outstanding qualities. The privileged aristocracy of truth. Around a ruler, there will be lesser nobles. These are the aristocracy, the privileged families. Here, this is a privileged aristocracy of truth. It's not because of their birth or their wealth that they are powerful. It's because of their closeness to the truth. And she's also protecting the triumvirate of wisdom, love, and bliss. Triumvirate means rule by 3 men, 3 people. It's a form of government which has been tried in history, where there are three people who share authority between them, maybe looking after different aspects of the administration. So here the triumvirate represents wisdom and love and bliss. These are three great powers. She's protecting their rule. And she's protecting the sole autocracy of the absolute light. Autocracy is when only one person rules. But in this case, the ruler is the absolute light, the light of higher consciousness, divine, supreme consciousness. So she's protecting that divine order of things. And she's protecting it against the flat equality of death. Death comes to destroy everything in the same way. So against that hierarchy of powers, there's this, we could say, revolutionary movement that wants to level everything, make everything equal in front of the power of death. And the all-leveling insurgent night, the darkness of inconscience, unconsciousness, which also wants to rule everything, leveling everything. So this is what she is protecting, the divine order against the powers of death and night. And this is happening in the universe, the wide cosmic battlefield. Anybody would like to ask anything about these passages we've read today?
What is the thunderbolt actually?
Sorry?
Thunderbolt, is a spear or something?
They have it in Buddhist iconography. Some of these goddess, female figures also, they have the Vajra. You know what it looks like? It's like two cones joined together. I don't know why it looks like that really. But of course it's the weapon of Zeus. He used to have a thunderbolt, but that looks more like a stroke of lightning. I think the Sanskrit word vidyut, no? Yeah, it's a feminine word. We worship the mother in the form of lightning. So let's read all the lines together. If as we read you notice anything that I haven't explained properly, you can ask at the end. So we go back to page 506, line 124.
I have loved, but none has loved me since my birth. My fruit of works is given to other hands. All that is left me is my evil thoughts, my sordid quarrel against God and man, envy of the riches that I cannot share, hate of a happiness that is not mine. I know my fate will ever be the same, It is my nature's work that cannot change. I have loved for mine, not for the beloved's sake. I have lived for myself and not for others' lives. Each in himself is soul by nature's law. So God has made his harsh and dreadful world. So has he built the petty heart of man. Only by force and ruse can man survive. For pity is a weakness in his breast. His goodness is a laxity in the nerves. His kindness an investment for return. His altruism is ego's other face. He serves the world that him the world may serve. If once the Titan's strength could wake in me, if Enceladus from Etna could arise, I then would reign the master of the world, and like a god enjoy man's bliss and pain. But God has taken from me the ancient force. There is a dull consent in my sluggish heart, a fierce satisfaction with my special pangs, as if they made me taller than my kind. Only by suffering can I excel. I am the victim of titanic ills. I am the doer of demoniac deeds. I was made for evil. Evil is my lot. Evil I must be, and by evil live. Naught other can I do but be myself. What nature made me, that I must remain. I suffer and toil and weep. I moan and hate. And Savitri heard the voice, the echo heard, and turning to her being of pity, spoke. Madonna of suffering, Mother of grief divine, thou art a portion of my soul put forth to bear the unbearable sorrow of the world. Because thou art, men yield not to their doom, but ask for happiness and strive with fate. Because thou art, the wretched still can hope. But thine is the power to solace, not to save. One day I will return, a bringer of strength, and make thee drink from the Eternal's cup. his streams of force shall triumph in thy limbs, and wisdom's calm control thy passionate heart. Thy love shall be the bond of humankind, compassion the bright key of nature's acts. Misery shall pass abolished from the earth. The world shall be freed from the anger of the beast, from the cruelty of the Titan and his pain. There shall be peace and joy for evermore. On passed she in her spirit's upward route. An ardent grandeur climbed mid ferns and rocks. A quiet wind flattered the heart to warmth. A finer perfume breathed from slender trees. All beautiful grew, subtle and high and strange. Here, on a boulder carved like a huge throne, a woman sat in gold and purple sheen, armed with the trident and the thunderbolt, her feet upon a cushioned lion's back. A formidable smile curved round her lips. Heaven fire laughed in the corners of her eyes. Her body a mass of courage and heavenly strength, she menaced the triumph of the nether gods. A halo of lightnings flamed around her head, and sovereignty, a great cestus, zoned her robe, and majesty and victory sat with her, guarding in the wide cosmic battlefield against the flat equality of death and the all-levelling insurgent night. The hierarchy of the ordered powers, the high changeless values, the peaked eminences, the privileged aristocracy of truth. And in the governing ideal sun, the triumvirate of wisdom, love, and bliss, and the sole autocracy of the absolute light.